Hello and welcome to Building on a Budget Models. I'm Thomas and today we're going to be building the 1968 MGB in 1/24th scale by Aoshima. Now firstly I had a look at the bodywork to check for mould lines. This is pretty good. This body here, I used some of these UMP modelling sanders to sand down some of the more obvious ones, although even these are quite often in places that you won't see particularly once it's all painted up. I then used some Tamiya fine white primer to check for other kind of imperfections. It's just a single coat, and then I had another look over for more mould lines and scratches. There it is with another coat of the primer, and then I used some TS8 Italian red from Tamiya. I did 4 coats of this, a couple of mist coats and then a few wet coats. Leaving at least 20 minutes in between each coat. Now the undercarriage was primed. I probably should have just done this all in black though, as that's what the instructions suggest. This is matte black from Revell, and then I used a bit of iron from Revell as well. Most of the brakes are in matte black as well. These calipers on the rear brakes are in matte black with the discs in silver. The car has disc brakes on the front and drum brakes on the rear. Steering moves quite nicely. This pole here to connect up the mechanism goes in really well. There are 4 poly caps which go in each of the brakes. I had to do a little bit more paint around this once it was glued. And then there are leaf springs on the rear suspension. There's a very small part that goes next to the engine here. It's not clear on the instructions. This kit's about 30 years old, but it still goes together really nicely. This exhaust part here is made of several pieces. You can colour this whatever you want and add some weathering should you want to. Then it fits to the kind of side of the kind of engine detail that you get underneath. I think this is the fuel tank which goes at the back here. The tyres are branded Dunlop and quite nice as well, and the Y wheels are really good with transparent parts, as you would expect on real ones. There were some places where I felt a little bit of black panel liner could help, just around the middle, and I think that's done a good job. These go on really easily. Just remember to be really gentle with the front ones. There are then also chrome spinners that go on the middle. I used a little bit of CA glue, Gorilla Glue gel to get these into place. Now I chose to do a little chrome strip on the door cards that had already been done in semi-gloss black. So I used my tip here, which I will later use on the bodywork as well. Then also from the chrome sprue there are some door handles and window winders. Now the car comes with a radio as default, but in some of these older cars they didn't have this, so you can cover it up and then put on the little silver MGB logo. As you can see here, the example that I was basing this on didn't have this, so I covered it up. The decals are quite nice. With a little bit of setting solution they fit in really well. And then there is a little speaker underneath, at least I think it's a speaker. I used this racing wheel from the Fujimi Old Mini kit as it better resembled the one that's in the real car. A little semi-gloss black around the outside. I also drilled the holes. And the steering wheel went on in the same sort of way as the stock one. Just a little test fit here with the dashboard. Seats are made up of two parts, but the real ones, as you can see here, had headrests. So I used some milliput here, mixed together to equal amounts for about 7 minutes, kneading really carefully. I then rolled them into a kind of sausage shape and cut them into the right length for the headrests. I made 3 just in case. I then used the end of the an old craft blade to add some stitching and other details. Now while they were still wet, I kind of stuck them on top, and there you are when they're dried. I think that looks pretty good. Gear stick housing is chrome, and then the top is all painted. Seats were primed and then done in semi-gloss black from Revell. Really happy with that. Door cards fit in nicely and kind of create the interior tub. Most of the floor was painted in matte black. Now the bodywork was done in 4 coats of TS13 gloss clear from Tamiya. I then wet sanded it, firstly with 6000 grit, then 8000 and then 10,000 grit. This was to flatten out the clear coat. Then use some of this hyper polish and a polishing kind of cotton attachment to my Dremel. This was on the lowest speed, 2. Bit nervous about doing this as I didn't want to ruin all the hard work that I'd done with the paintwork, but I do think that I improved it. It's important to have this moving in the same direction, as if you're working against the paint you can accidentally chip some of it off. Pretty happy with that. There were a few places where unfortunately I did burn through some of the paint. Found around the wheel arches here that just adding a little bit of red Sharpie covered it up completely. I then used this microfiber cloth just to get rid of some of the cotton fibres, and using my tip, which you can see linked above, I added the chrome strips down the sides of the car. Remember how important it is to use a brand new craft knife when doing something like this. I also gave it little slits here to show where the chrome strip would be separated by the door. There are other chrome parts that come with the kit, including this really nice transparent grille. Remember that you may need to add a little bit more chrome, something like Molotow or just silver paint, where these have been removed from the sprues. The interior tub needs to go into the bodywork before you can mate it with the rest of the car. This is a bit of a tight fit, so be very careful here. There are window masks. These go on the outside of the window frame as opposed to the inside. Try and secure them down really well, especially if you're using spray cans like I am. They're not designed for spray cans, so it's important to mask the rear side as well. I used some TS30 silver leaf for these parts. Then test fitted it. Now for the rear of the indicators, I stuck them to some aluminium plumber's tape as well. Then painted them with some orange Sharpie. I think that looks pretty good. Did the same for the tail lights in orange and red Sharpie, but these ones go straight onto the chrome parts. There are two options for the fuel cap on the back, and one of the most difficult parts of this is this little boot clip. Now then, there are options for the badge. There are either photo etch or decals. I used a bit of both. I really like this photo etch MG badge which goes onto the boot, and then there is an incredibly fiddly MGB logo which goes above it. I knocked this off once. Then use some black panel line accent from Tamiya to fill in some of the panel lines. I also had a cotton bud with a little bit of thinners to wipe this away should I make any mistakes. Door handles on. Now the version that I was building had these different wing mirrors. I got these from a Beetle, and I chose to use the decal on the front rather than paint the photo etched logo. Found that the bumpers need a little bit of a sand to get into place. And here it is. Some of the other details I added, including a few little bits of silver paint to represent clips for the roof. I also added one photo etch number plate on the back, but didn't add the one on the front. There were also two silver squares on either side, which showed where the British Leyland badge would have gone. I'm pretty pleased with this. I really like the MGB. This was actually the first model kit I ever made, but in 1/32 scale from Airfix. So I'm pretty happy, and I think I've come on a long way in the past 11 years. This is going to be a birthday present for my uncle. He bought this car last year, and this is based on his real one. Thank you very much for watching. Please do comment, like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.